want and expect this synod to do, and are they likely to change their position on homosexuality? With me here in the studio, Fiona Mansford, a Catholic speaker and youth worker. Mark Dowd is a Catholic writer and broadcaster and also a member of the Catholic gay group Quest. He's also a former Dominican friar and he joins us from our studio in Salford. And in a moment we'll be joined by Francis De Bernardo, who is Executive Director of New Ways Ministry, an organisation that works on educating Catholic people on LGBT issues in the US. Thank you all for joining us. Mark, first of all, what is your view on Monsignor Carrasma's decision to come out?
I think the individual case opens up a can of worms, not because it's scandalous, not because it threatens to hijack this particular synod. There's a huge irony at the heart of this question, that the Catholic Church, which still teaches, regrettably, that being homosexual is to have an objective disorder and speaks of the language of disorder in its official teaching documents. The fact of the matter is it's the worst kept secret in the world that it relies hugely on gay men for the recruitment of its priests, its bishops, and indeed many cardinals. So you have this massive irony that it has a very negative take on the very people that it relies on for its ministry. So in a sense, I've often said this, but if the Vegetarian Society found out half of its members had a penchant for T-bone steaks and meat eating, it would have an identity crisis. And it's exactly the same sort of cognitive dissonance which I think has opened up with the story.
What do you think about what Mark's saying, Fiona?
Well, I think first of all the case with Monsignor Carrasma, he wasn't let go from the Vatican because he is gay or homosexual, but really because he's not living his vows as a Catholic priest. And that would be the case as to whether or not it was an affair with a man or an affair with a woman. The point here is that he made vows, and he hasn't been living according to those vows. I think what the Church does do and what the Catholic faith does do is affirm the kind of complementarity of male and female, and says that it matters that we're born male and female, that there's something important there, and that marriage is between a man and a woman, and any kind of relationship of a kind of sexual nature is between a man and a woman. So for priests or for any Catholic who is gay or experiences same-sex attraction, and I know there are many, there are, as Mark said, they're called to celibacy, which is not a call, it's not a denial of love, and it's not a denial of sexuality, but it's in fact, I would say that they're called to love more, and I appreciate that
Why explain that?
Well, so the priests that I know that live their celibate vocation, they are, I mean, I guess ultimately they're offering a sacrifice, they're making a sacrifice of having their own exclusive intimate relationships, their own exclusive kind of sexual relationships, and their own family for the sake of being available to love everybody, really. One of my own brothers is a Catholic priest, and, I noticed when he became a priest that it's almost like he belongs to the people that he's serving, he belongs to the Church, and he's a very happy and fulfilled man. So I don't really buy that celibacy is a kind of, denial of love or happiness. I think if it's lived well and with, the love of God at the centre, then I think it can be a very fulfilling and meaningful way of life.
Let's bring in Francis De Bernardo joining us from Rome. How do you see this?
Well, I think that Monsignor Carrasma has taken a very important step for himself and for the Catholic Church. For himself, it was a step of coming to honesty and acknowledgement of the way that God has made him, the way that God has made him to relate to other people. And for the Catholic Church, I think it's a step that can help the bishops who are meeting here in Rome this week to better understand the gay and lesbian members of the Church.
What would you like the Synod to do?
My main thing that I would like the Synod to do is to allow lesbian and gay, bisexual and transgender Catholics to speak to the bishops, the way the bishops have invited married couples to speak with them as well. Because I don't think that the bishops can fully understand the lives and the faith of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people until they hear their testimony publicly.
Mark, would you expect this to lead to any real change?
I don't expect in 3 weeks' time for the Pope to be standing on that balcony in Rome saying, you know, I've had second thoughts and I think gay people should be allowed to get married. That would be wonderful. It's not realistic. But I think Frank is right. I think change happens when people have human contact, when they stop these doctrinal categories and start seeing the person as some objective other and start talking about them as a distant group, but actually meet them concretely. There's the Pope actually last week in Washington. He did meet a gay couple, one man and his partner, who he's known for quite a long time. It would be a very good idea if a lot of the cardinals and the bishops actually had a bit more of that human contact. But I think the important thing is that even if the church can't go as far as doing a complete bolt-fasten U-turn, it can drop this hurtful language of disorder. It treats people like me at the moment as though you know, the witches or the left-handed people in the 16th and 17th century were seen as marginalised at the edge of society and were agents of the devil. And quite frankly, as the priest in the clip, we heard him saying, I'm a son of God. And I think that's the kind of language we want. This notion that homosexuality is just one variant in God's rainbow creation.
How do you reconcile, therefore, the person you are with the faith that you're in? Has it made you want to leave the faith? Absolutely not.
I stay in my church because I love it and because I think that my story counts. And I tell you one thing very, very clearly. There was not one word said in the Gospels, in the 4 Gospels, by Jesus about the whole business of homosexuality. It's a very low-key issue compared with the huge issues of poverty and environmental degradation and all the things that we face. And in a sense, one of the sins is that we spend, in a sense, so much time because of the fact that the teaching is so difficult and unacceptable. It's a distraction. I think the willfulness with which we engage in these issues actually are a sinful deflector from the bigger issues which affects all of God's creatures.
Thank you all very much. Just very quickly, yes.
Just a final comment there. I think that I agree that the Synod is it is an opportunity to listen. And I think where people feel excluded or hurt by the Church, then Pope Francis is saying we don't, that's not right, we don't want that to be happening. But I do think this is a very important issue because it really gets to the heart of our identity, you know, and it gets to the heart of, you know, the order and what has God intended for us as male and female. And he certainly hasn't intended for any of us to feel excluded or hurt, but at the same time, as Catholics, we do want to try to respect, you know, the way that God has intended us to live for our own fulfillment, really. So, and that, you know, as Pope Francis is saying clearly, and it is in Scripture, you know, that in the beginning God made us male and female, and it's male and female that can become one in the kind of sexual relationship.
Fiona, thanks very much. Fiona Mansford, Francis de Bernardo and Mark Dowd, thank you. Thank you all.